Well, welcome again to this episode of Doing It Right. Let me ask you a question. If you in the audience are a professional who's looking to enhance your impact and influence, and who isn't in this crazy world today? In other words, doing it right. I want to tell you about a current keynote that I'm doing in organizations like Shell Oil, North Texas Food Bank, Texaco, Vistra, anyway, across the country. And it's designed to empower individuals in all industries. It's called Know and Show Your Brand. And that's exactly what it is. Basically, know your brand is all about how you show up, your presence, how you look, act, walk, talk, and are. And show your brand is how you get out there. And this is what people usually say, oh, but Valerie, I don't want to be pushy, or women usually say this, I don't want to be too aggressive. Well, it's fine to be assertive. It's not fine to be aggressive. But if you don't put yourself out there, then who's going to be able to benefit from your wonderfulness? So I would love to have the opportunity in your organization to come in and give that keynote address. Now for today's show. I want to start with a quote, and here it is. Being a first responder isn't just a job, it's a calling that requires immense courage and commitment and an unyielding desire to protect and serve. This is a perfect introduction to my guest today, Sam Horwitz, a former Secret Service agent and someone who experienced firsthand the events of September 11th. 9/11. She was there, and she's going to talk all about it. So stay tuned. If you know any first responders or you have been in a situation of trauma, you're going to want to hear what Sam says. See you in a minute.
Welcome to our podcast, Doing It Right. This podcast reveals authentic stories from successful leaders doing it right. It's about their journey to become a leader, their choices, motivations, and lessons. In essence, how they built successful personal brands. Your host is Valerie Sokolosky, author of 8 leadership books and nationally known as an authority on executive presence and personal branding. Let's get started. Here's Valerie.
Okay, so Sam Horwitz, welcome to the show today. I'm honored to have you on.
Oh, well, it's such a pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much.
You have a lot to share, and I'm curious what this badge is. I have to ask on your shirt. Tell us about what that is.
So that is a logo to our organization called a Badge of Honor. It's a 501c3. It's myself and 3 of my partners. We established it back in 2019, and it's all about providing post-traumatic stress awareness and suicide prevention to our first responders. And so we got the badge in the middle, like the flag behind me that represents all of our service-related industries, including the green, which is our veterans. We have the largest veteran population in Texas that serves as first responders. So they bring a unique perspective. Some of them say they bring unique challenges because of their previous service, especially if they were deployed overseas in war zones. But they also bring amazing experience to the first responder world. So that's what the Badge of Honor is all about, and it's got the logo on the tagline, I should say, URL on the bottom. It's a badgeofhonor.org.
Thank you for mentioning that. You have lots of resources, and I'll get to those a little bit later in our interview. I want to start just, Sam, with on an interesting note, as a Secret Service agent. Can you share with us any humorous things that happened, funny things that happened, stories you are able to share that happened?
You know, the one story that just it warms my heart. I'm a dog person. I have 3 dogs, and I was assigned to be on the detail of the Senior Bush and his wife, and we were in New York, And part of the Secret Service duties is to clear the floor above, below, and the floor that the protectees are staying on. So we utilize NYPD, the bomb dogs, to do the sniff, and kind of ran into a timing issue where under normal circumstances, NYPD would be finished and already off the floor. In this particular case, I'm on the elevator. We're coming up to the floor where the bushes are staying. The elevator doors open and a tennis ball goes by the elevator doors, and I just put my hands out and I said, hang on 1 minute. And here comes the dog. It was a yellow lab flying by, and I'll never forget, Mrs. Bush said, "Oh my gosh, that's so cute." And then President Bush said, "Can we meet whoever owns this dog?" And I said, "Absolutely, sir," and exited the elevator car, and the dog had run back to his handler. And this NYPD officer, he went white as a ghost. His eyes got really wide because he didn't expect us to be coming off the elevator. But they were so gracious. They came up to him, petting the dog, who was very well behaved. That ball was him getting his treat, his toy, after performing his duties, and he got to shake Senior Bush's hand and Mrs. Bush, and yeah, it was great.
I hope you journaled your life and all those fun things. Did you, Sam? Did you journal?
I do have extensive, I'll call them journals or writings about the good, bad, and the ugly, including 9/11, which became a whole book.
Well, let's talk about 9/11 and where were you? Tell us your story.
Yeah, I was just going to work like everybody else that sunny, beautiful fall Tuesday morning, and our building was Building 7. That's where the United States Secret Service for New York, the field office was. So we parked our government cars under World Trade Center 1. I happened to be in the elevator coming up to the lobby level when American Airlines Flight 11 struck it. Had no idea it was a plane. Thought it was an explosion that happened in the building. Thank goodness our elevator car stopped at the lobby level where we got off, but there was a debris field. All those stories below. The plane went in 94, 95. And like I said, we're at the lobby. Papers were flying around, dust. And my training brain kicked in and just said, get out. So I grabbed as many people as I could, went up an escalator and out an exit door that I had never used before. My gut said, go that way. And put us out on the plaza level, where immediately we realized something very bad had taken place. There was a debris field of concrete, pieces of metal, pieces of people raining down around us. And the only thing that shielded me and the people that I was with was that overhang that we were under. And I made it into my building, Building 7. Eventually got home that evening at about 5:30. This is after the towers had come down. And we were driven home by the field office agents who responded to New Jersey, because we were ferried across the Hudson River by the U.S. Park Police, and the agents there drove us home in their government cars.
It's hard to even think about what you must have been thinking about, Sam. What was going through your mind?
There was no thinking. It was just acting on pure training. Save as many as you can, stay organized, triage, keep moving. When the towers came down, we were outrunning that dust cloud. Everything that everybody sees every year on the documentaries, I witnessed right front and center. Myself and the other members of the New York field office that were with me.
Oh, Sam, I'm sitting here in the studio. It's cold outside, but I'm getting chills. Can't even imagine. Well, you wrote a book about it. Hold the book up. I'd love for the audience who are on
Sure.
YouTube to be able to see it. And for our
Yeah.
audio audience, it's called The Silent Fall. The Silent Fall. And where can they get it?
Anywhere books are sold online, Amazon being the most popular. You can also visit my website, samhorwitz007.com.
I like that.
It kind of became a brand, and everybody wants to know the stories, right? So when you serve on a lot of details, but in the last bunch of months, it's become something that I scratch my head and I'm wondering, are they even doing any kind of legitimate training, the Secret Service, because they've taken their eye off the ball in terms of protection work. And at this point, it's the entire leadership structure needs to change. It's
Well,
unfortunate.
That's putting it out there, and good for you. Good for you.
Yeah.
You know, we should always be evolving, and especially in the training. What kind of a person would want to be a first responder, and more importantly, what are the skills and the competencies that they would have to have? Should anybody in the audience be considering this, or maybe someone out there that's watching and listening is a first responder? What's that role?
I definitely think it's a calling. In the years working in the nonprofit world with first responders, and in addition to my own experience, I mean, my entire family was in the military. All the guys in my family served. When it was my turn, the phone was ringing. My mom said, absolutely not. So I did the next best thing and went federal law enforcement, which is quasi-military, the training. You're trained, multiple types of firearms. We just don't get the heavy munitions now. The Secret Service has brought forward rifles. So that's something that happened after my time. But it's that heart for service. I knew that I wanted to do something that would make an impact, and also that had an investigative aspect to it. So if you're detailed outside of Washington, D.C., you're put into a criminal investigation squad. So in addition to protective work, I also did criminal investigations. So I like to solve puzzles when I was young. But I also want to say that we have come across, like I said, we've been doing the nonprofit, and we've been with, in deep with first responders since 2019 and listening to their stories. It's also people wanting to make a difference because of childhood experiences that were negative or positive. And it is certainly, you do not go into the profession for the money. Let's just say that straight off. We are cut from a different cloth, and we don't think about the 9 to 5. We are looking for more excitement. Not that we're adrenaline junkies, but we're not folks that like to sit behind a desk day in, day out. We like to be out there with the people. Our observation skills are key. I mean, situational awareness is drilled into you if you don't have it already coming in. If you do, it's heightened. And right now in America, we need young people to step up and take that oath. If you come from a first responder family, come on board. You're always welcome. And if you're not, that's okay. My first experience in my squad with the Secret Service, I had teachers, I had a pastor, and they became Secret Service agents. So we come from all walks of life, but it is the heart of service, and you do have to care about people, and you do have to care about yourself as well, and understand that this job, while rewarding, can change you over time.
Well, let's go there. I'm very glad you mentioned that, Sam, because what was it like just psychologically? What did you go through after you went through that experience, you personally? How did it affect you?
You know, we had a 30-minute block on post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, but you never think it's going to happen to you. And I started experiencing the telltale signs of PTSD that night after 9/11, and it was an inability to be in a closed space. And I'm not claustrophobic, never have been. Cause full blown, distress anxiety response. I still don't like heights, really. Never had a problem with it before. And very vivid nightmares, like the not only sounds, but I could smell everything in my nightmare. So re-experiencing the events of 9/11, and those things got worse as time went on, not better. And in when we experience trauma, our brain looks for experiences that we've had to properly file the trauma away. We give it a name and it gets filed away, like in a filing cabinet in our brain. And something like a smell or a sound might bring something up. But for us that were at 9/11, also, the veterans that we work with and other first responders that we've met, the issue becomes problematic when we're going on 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. We're not sleeping because of the nightmares. We're not eating well. We're pushing through. We're trying to use work as a distraction, and that's not working. Things at home start falling apart. And for me personally, I was unable to focus. I graduated from law school, have written numerous reports, so paperwork wasn't a big deal for me. And I remember sitting at my desk and literally not able to comprehend what I was reading. And it was a report that I had to hand in. I thought I was going crazy. And because of my inability to not only concentrate, excuse me, but to fulfill the job roles, because I was just exhausted. I was looking for something that made sense. I was trying to grab on to anything that would allow what I was going through to make sense, and I just wasn't getting any answers. And so I made the difficult decision to resign my position as an agent, something that I worked really, really hard for, because there's no do-overs. It's a zero fail game. If I'm not on, something may happen to a protectee, and that is not an option.
My goodness, Sam. So glad you're
As we
here.
know from the news, right? As
Yeah.
we know from what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
It's zero fail. Yeah.
And you said it so succinctly earlier. You don't think that something will happen to you. No, we don't. One of the things you said was a top takeaway in your journey was that it's okay to not be okay.
We like to put on a face that shows the world that we are okay. So when somebody asks, hey, how's it going? Fine. Fine is a 4-letter word. If a first responder answers with, I'm fine, they're not fine.
They're not fine.
And it is something that we need to understand, that veil, that fake smile, that it's okay to show feelings and emotions in appropriate ways at appropriate times. We're not I'm not here saying when you're on a call and you have to handle business, you're getting all touchy-feely, emotional, that. But in the private time, in the quiet time, in the de-stress time, if you're in your cruiser before you're clearing that call, it's a time to get recentered. It's a time to use a de-stress strategy and technique, and we teach that in the workshops. But you're human.
Yes.
And somewhere in our training, we are taught to turn that off because we're answering the call on somebody's worst day. And so it really is it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't quite know the exact word to use, but in terms of a training fail, that's one of them. We should never turn off our humanness. It's our humanness. It's us. It's our personalities that we bring to the job that makes a job successful, that makes a crew successful, that makes a team successful.
You obviously asked for help, didn't you? Shouldn't we?
I asked for help after 9/11 a bunch of times, didn't get it, and that's why myself and 8 other agents left the New York field office in 1 month. Unprecedented. Our boss was removed because he lacked leadership and was sent to a different duty station. We have to understand that it is absolutely okay to ask for help. And if your department makes it uncomfortable for you to raise your hand and say, hey, I need some help, then you need to go outside of your agency and get the help that you need. Okay. And let me just dispel a myth with this, because a lot of first responders think if they use their insurance, it somehow is traceable back to their employer, and that is not the case. Nothing that you use your insurance for that you report to a professional therapist, social worker, any person that you get help, it is 100% confidential. If you have peer support in your department, use it. That's what they're there for. We have to learn to talk. We have to learn to say, that last call was really messed up in our own colorful language, because let's face it, that's how we diffuse. So however you want to talk, and we have to talk to our spouses. We have to talk to our partners at home. We have to talk to our roommates. They're going to know that something bad happened because it's going to be on the news. It's going to be on social media. So by the time you get home, they're already going to know about it. Don't hide it. Don't say it's fine. Take the time with your partner, with your spouse, with your roommates, and again, say, yeah, today was really messed up. This is what happened, and you'll know. Obviously, you want to give the Disney version. You don't have to give all details. Maybe you have a spouse that wants to know the details. Give them the details. The more you suppress, the more you push down, the more you try to convince yourself, it's not worth talking about, it compounds. And remember, I talked about that filing cabinet. Well, you keep shoving it in. One day, the drawer's not going to close.
Well said. Well said, Sam. And that goes to any of us who work, and that is to ask for help. I spent too many years, Sam, in my early career. Oh, I don't want to ask for help. I shouldn't ask for help. It'll be a weakness if I ask for help. Who would I ask for help? Will it get out that I asked for help?
Yep.
So thank you for telling us that again, and it's so true. And it also goes to something else you said. You talked about connect back to humanity. Connect back to humanity. How did you do that?
Well, that could be a whole nother book in itself. But, I tried to wrap my head around watching people jump to their deaths and all the destruction. And for me, faith has always, operated in the background. I grew up a very observant Jewish family and always kept the Sabbath. And my questions to God kind of went unanswered. And it wasn't God's fault, it was my fault, because I wasn't able to get quiet enough to hear the answers. So I pushed my faith away because who lets 3,000 people die?
Which has been asked.
3,000 people get murdered, right? And we still have first responders dying of 9/11 related cancers. So it's not over. This 9/11 aftermath continues. But it was a giant faith walk. I like to say, God leaves the seat. Everybody has a seat at the table, right? You choose whether to stay or to leave, but your seat is always there for you to come back to. And I just had to make the decision to really come back to it, to get grounded again, to understand in a bigger picture that what it was happening to me was actually happening for me. Because I wouldn't be in the position and in the nonprofit with my amazing partners that I'm in right now, helping our first responder community, if I didn't go through what I went through.
Which is a really hard thing for people to understand, but God can and will help us if we ask to use those traumatic times of our lives. We all have them. We all have things that we wish we hadn't gone through. But then what are you going to do with those? And I'm so glad that our Sam today has found out how to do, what to do, and help others, even though you may still have the remnants of those dreams, Sam. So thank you for that. And in preparing for this show, I always research a lot and usually read the entire book. I don't have yours yet, but I will read it when I get it. One of the things I researched was the amount of technology now that is helping first responders. Drones, of course, things like the body-worn cameras. You tell us, how is technology helping first responders when they are actively working?
Well, we had the advent of the body cam, which came out first because, there were a lot of complaints made against officers, some of them completely warranted, some of them not. And it really was a protection mechanism to almost help get the story straight, because the video doesn't lie. And so with that, we have the ability to see every interaction a first responder, police officer specifically, goes through. We have, and I'll speak mostly to the law enforcement. I know fire has better safety equipment. Mm-hmm. They're still battling the how do we stay healthy through a career, because cancer is still the number one killer of our firefighters out there because of what they're exposed to. With law enforcement, we also have the introduction of, we do have the drones, and in the right hands, they can be used for good. In the wrong hands, they can be used to, collect intel that mm-hmm. shouldn't be being collected.
Right.
And we also have, I was at a conference not too long ago, and we have the technology where they can go in, if somebody's barricaded in there, kind of get a bird's eye view. There was just a recent story, a man, barricaded himself in a restaurant, shot at the drone. It didn't end well for him because he also shot at police. But the police were able to see inside. And then you have the most, I'll say, unique and scary at the same time, these robotic dogs. And
interesting.
They're kind of creepy, to be honest with you. I'm not sure exactly how they're going to be used because we have very capable canine officers that put their lives on the line every day doing their jobs. But we'll see. We'll see how these canine robots will be used. So
To-
technology it's evolving. It's definitely helpful, but like I said, there is a line, and we've seen in our own government how technology has been used in a way to really impede on our rights and frankly just violate them.
So good and bad on both sides.
Yeah.
Sam, you have such resources available to people. You have training available to people. You're part of teaching people like me how to shoot a gun. I've never held a gun in my life, and I think that I'm going to come back and go through that training. So my husband says I need to do. You've got so
Absolutely.
much to share with our audience. How can we reach you and get help from you?
Well, there's two places. If you're in need of resources for your job related functions, and that looks like professional help from a licensed social worker to any clinical style person, as well as outings, because everybody heals differently. So if you're somebody that wants to kayak fish or knows that being in nature is for you, go to abadgeofhonor.org. We call it our NASCAR. Scroll down on the homepage, click on any logo. It'll take you directly to our partner's resource. Call them, email them. You deserve it. Get the help that you need, and that your family also needs and deserves from you. And then, if people want to connect, just go to my website. It's samh007.com. You'll see about the shooting instruction that I do. I've been an instructor for the state of Texas since 2015, and the fun stuff that you got to experience with a friend, and we bring the coolest guns that are out there to those of you that want to be part of this very special group. We're doing a John Wick shoot the end of this month. I have a bunch of license to carry courses coming up, and carryintexas.com directly for that. And but I also have an all women's shooting group because it's great to train together, but I really want to build confidence and courage for women so they can understand that they can handle the same firearms that guys can handle. It might just take a little bit longer, but I promise if you train with me, you will leave the range with a huge smile on your face.
And I was right there with you. I saw how you train people like me, men and women, some who have already shot lots of guns, some like, as I said, I've never even held a gun. So I encourage my listeners and those on YouTube, if you can physically attend what she's talking about, do that. And other than that, reach out to Sam. I mean, Sam, you've been through more than any one person could or should go through, and you're a great resource yourself. So I just thank you so much for your service in so many ways, and wish you all of God's abundance in this coming year for everything that you're doing for other people. So thank you. Thank you so much for being on the show, and I want you to stay tuned for a minute, because I always leave with a little bit of I call Valerieism, just a philosophy that I have. Any comments at the end before I let you go? Because one other thing I wanted you to talk about briefly is the question of if you could go back and do your law enforcement over, what would be different?
It would be the understanding that, perfection is very overrated, that a woman playing in a guy's world, it's okay to just say, hey, I screwed up, and I'll do better next time, and not be afraid to use your voice when it's needed, and truly just own it, like your show. You gotta own everything, the good and the bad.
It's your life, and it comes with the good and the bad. And Sam, that leads me to actually the Valeriism I chose to talk about today. Excuse me, and it's this: grief and resilience live together. I have my own story briefly. We lost a son when he was 20 years old in a tragic car accident. That's something you never think will happen to you, just as we've talked about. But it did. And a year anniversary to the day, I was asked to give a keynote speech. And of course, as a keynote speaker, they want you to be, quote, motivational, quote, inspirational. It was all I could do to drag myself to the event and even get up and talk, Sam. But I did. And before I spoke that first time after Jason's death, I had determined I would never mention it. And just before, a few days before, someone said to me when I mentioned that statement, Valerie, if you don't, his death is not going to have any message for anybody else. And boy, that was just like throwing cold water on my face. And so I said back, but I'm not a keynote speaker that wants to make people cry about something that I've been through. And they said, Valerie, give yourself permission. You won't do it that way. You said own it. I owned it. And I got up on that keynote stage and I gave the story and I ended it with Jason's death. It was all I could do to choke my own tears. And just to show you that it was a thing to do. Yes, a lot of people always come up to a keynote speaker and want to talk. One woman came up, grabbed my hand, got right in my face, and she said, thank you for sharing that. I have a son who also was in a tragic car accident, and the difference is he lived. And that's all she had to say. Obviously not well. But you just have to go with what you believe you should share when you have an opportunity to share it. Sam, that's what you've done today. God bless you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being the wonderful you that you are. And audience, in the banner, take a look and say it for our audio audience one more time. How can they reach you to find out how you can train them in gun shooting, how that you can be of service to their organization, and so forth? So tell us again.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest way is just to go directly to my website, samh007.com, and just reach out. Got all my contacts on there.
An audience, if you have enjoyed this show, and I know you have, the only way that I'll know that I'm bringing things that are relevant and compelling to you is if you show me by hitting the red button and subscribing. If you have already done that, share the episode that has been important to you. And that's it. Make comment in the show notes that are underneath this show. So somehow, please let me know that I'm not just doing this for grins. I really care about impacting my audience. And so thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And continue to do things right. Until next time, stay authentic.
Thanks for listening. To receive Valerie's voice, free monthly leadership tips, and to learn more about her leadership programs and coaching, visit her website, valerieandcompany.com. Next week, we'll be here again to inspire, engage, and equip you with teachable points of view from successful leaders who have been doing it right. Until then, lead authentically.